This workflow runs cleanly on just 8 GB of VRAM, and it can push clips up to 15 seconds long in a single pass. To test it out, I'm dropping in a photo of a guy on a farm. We're using a prompt that covers both the video and the native stereo audio in the exact same run. I'm going to keep this same prompt loaded as we test out different presets, resolutions, and clip durations. Here's the full prompt. A blonde young man in a yellow t-shirt starts by walking through his farm casually. Then the sky abruptly turns pitch black, dark clouds churn rapidly, and giant silhouettes crash violently from the heavens. In sheer terror, he breaks into a full sprint past rustic village huts toward an open doorway where an elderly grandfather works inside. Dynamic continuous tracking shot, authentic 1990s 35mm film aesthetic, heavy film grain, high contrast dramatic storm lighting, shallow depth of field, no cuts, with the audio prompt suddenly shattered by deafening thunder cracks and heavy ground shaking impacts, transitioning to loud running footsteps and a panicked young man screaming, "Giants are coming!" Hide giants, backed by a fast-swelling 90s thriller score. So here's our clip rendered at 864 by 480 for 10 seconds. Let's take a look at the result.
Giants are coming! Hide! Giants!
So that was rendered at a lower resolution to give us that longer clip duration. It actually generated faster than yesterday's 5-second run. This workflow is built around speed and VRAM safety. The presets are pre-balanced, so as you pick longer clip durations, they automatically step down the resolution to keep generation fast. If you want to force both a high resolution and a longer clip, you can switch to manual mode and set those numbers yourself. But sticking to my presets guarantees the best balance between visual quality, generation speed, and GPU memory. And here's a clip generated completely text to video at 1344 by 768 for 5 seconds. We're still using the exact same prompt. The only tweak I made was bypassing the input image node, which automatically switches the whole workflow into text to video mode.
Giants are coming! Hide! Giants!
And finally, I ran a higher resolution test at 5 seconds, which took around 5 to 10 minutes. Even our 10-second generations are clocking in under 10 minutes now, whereas yesterday, standard runs were taking well over 10 minutes.
Giants are coming! Hide! Giants!
MiniMax H3, running locally on a card that on paper has no business running it. I've got a workflow built for exactly this, and I'm going to walk you through every part of it and tell you what actually matters. H3 has no small variant. There is no lightweight version waiting for you somewhere. The lightest usable stack is about 42.5 gigabytes of weights. 21 gigs for the diffusion model, 15.7 for the text encoder, and about 5.8 for the 2VA ES. Running that on 8 gigs does not mean the model shrinks. It means ComfyUI's dynamic VRAM system streams those weights through your card layer by layer, pulling them off your drive as it needs them. So this is not compute bound the way you're used to. It's bandwidth bound. Your card isn't the bottleneck, your storage and your bus are, which means the first run is slow. Custom nodes, you need exactly one. KJ nodes for the Sage Attention patch node. Everything else in here is core ComfyUI. You also need the Sage Attention Python package installed into your embedded interpreter, and I'll leave a command for that in the description. Lowvram does nothing here. Nothing. This is the flag everyone reaches for the second they hear 8 gigabytes, and it is explicitly ignored when DynamicVRAM is active, which it is on basically any modern NVIDIA plus Torch plus native Windows setup. Its own help text in the command line arguments file says, so don't add it, don't waste time on it, do not add cache, none. The default RAM pressure caching is what keeps your encoded conditioning between runs, which means when you re-roll a seed, ComfyUI skips that 32 billion parameter text encoder completely. That's the single biggest speedup available to you in this whole setup, and cache none throws it in the bin. I'm also passing reserve VRAM at 0.9, which just leaves a little headroom so Windows doesn't get squeezed out. Okay? Now here's the part I really want you to hear, because this is where most H3 tutorials will send you the wrong way. You're going to see people tell you to grab the FP8 version of the model for a speed boost. That advice is correct on a 40 series or 50 series card. On anything older, it's actively wrong. And here's why. Comfy gates each quantization format on a minimum SM version. Int8, which is what we're using, needs SM 7.5. My card is SM86, so that runs natively on the Tensor cores. FP8 needs SM8.9. My card doesn't have it. So FP8 doesn't fail. It just gets emulated, dequantized layer by layer in software. And you can measure it. Same card, one big matmul. BF16 dense came in at 6.69 milliseconds. Int4 came in at 1.28, and NVFP4 came in at 6.20, basically sitting right on top of the BF16 number. That's what emulation looks like. It's doing the work and then throwing away the benefit. So on this card, FP8 would be slower than the Int8 you already have. The obvious upgrade is a downgrade. One honest footnote, the text encoder in this workflow is NVFP4, and that one is emulated. But it runs once per prompt and the result gets cached, so it costs you nothing per step. It's fine. Let's open the workflow up. There are 3 ideas behind how this is laid out, and if you get these 3, the rest of it explains itself. First idea, one preset drives all the geometry. Duration and resolution spend the same budget. What your card has to hold is roughly width over 32 times height over 32 times the latent frame count. So 15 seconds at 480p and 5 seconds at 1344 by 768 cost about the same. They're the same size problem. If I gave you 3 free dials, width, height, length, you would absolutely combine them into something that can't fit, and you'd think the workflow was broken. So instead there's one integer, this node here, the preset, and it feeds 3 lookup expressions, one for width, one for height, one for frame count. Change that one number, and the canvas and the length move together into a combination I already know fits. Second idea, the model runs through a patch chain, and the order matters. It goes loader into Sage Attention, into Sigma Shift, into EasyCache, and then out to both the scheduler and the guider. Each of those nodes takes a model in and hands a modified model out. The scheduler reads model sampling, so it has to sit after Sigma Shift, and both the scheduler and the guider need to be fed from the same end of that chain. Worth mentioning the stock ComfyUI template wires the raw model straight into the scheduler. This one doesn't, that's deliberate. Third idea, there's no CFG, so there's only one denoising branch. I'm using basic guider, not CFG guider. That means one conditioning branch instead of a conditional and unconditional pair. That roughly halves your activation memory compared to a CFG workflow, and it's a big part of why this fits in 8 gigs at all. The consequence you need to know about, there is no negative prompt, and there is no CFG scale. Now let's go left to right. This column is loaders and the model chain. The diffusion loader, that's the int8 file we just talked about. The clip loader, that's Qwen3VL, the 32 billion parameter one, and the type is set to MiniMax. That's the one that runs once per prompt and then gets cached. 2 VAE loaders, one for video, and that one tiles internally. 256 pixel spatial tiles, 17 frame chunks, so decoding is never going to be the thing that runs you out of memory. And one for audio, which decodes the generated stereo track. Sage Attention, set to auto. That's the big speed lever. Sigma Shift, set to 12 and 3. Those are exactly the model's built-in defaults. So as it sits right now, it does nothing. It's there as a knob for when you want one. And EasyCache, which is bypassed, that's optional extra speed. And unlike Sage, it does change your output, so it's off by default. Middle column, the preset and your inputs. This is the node you'll actually touch. 0 means manual. 1 through 6 is the table. Below it in cyan are the 3 manual nodes, seconds, width, and height. Those are only read when the preset is 0, so you can leave values parked in them and forget about them. Then load image, that's your first frame. And here's a nice detail. If you disconnect this, the same node just does text to video instead. Same task, no rewiring. And if you want first frame to last frame interpolation, you add a second load image into the last frame input. The first frame gets stretched to the canvas, the last one gets center cropped, then the H3 node itself. This takes your prompt and your keyframe and puts out conditioning plus an empty audio-video latent. Notice its width, height, and length widgets are grayed. They're link-driven, coming from those preset expressions. Then sampling. Res multi-step with the simple scheduler, 14 steps, basic guider, sampler custom advanced, nothing exotic. And here's the bit I actually like pointing at. Look at this. 2 decodes coming out of the same sampler output. One goes to the video, VAE, one goes to the audio, VAE. Same latent. That's what joint audio-video generation actually looks like when you can see it. It's not two pipelines, it's one. Then create video muxes the frames and the audio together at 24 FPS. People will ask about 20 seconds. It's not there for two separate reasons, and neither one is a settings problem. 1. 362 frames, about 15.08 seconds, is the model's trained maximum. The Node's own tooltip says the trained range is roughly 124 to 362, and past that is untested. 2. 20 seconds would be 481 frames, which is around 57,000 tokens, even at 480p, and that's past the memory ceiling anyway. So 15 seconds is the wall. Plan around it. Now prompting. This is different from what you're used to, so pay attention here. Write one block of text covering the look, the shots, and the audio. H3 handles a little shot list really well. You can literally write shot 1, shot 2, cut 2, and it'll follow you. Always write an audio line. Always. The audio is being generated jointly with the picture, so if you don't describe it, you get whatever the model decides to infer. Name the room tone. Name the sound effects. Name the music and say how it should resolve. That one line is the difference between generic and intentional. Dialogue works too. Put spoken lines in quotes and it'll do voice and lip sync, and remember, no negative prompt. So anything you don't want has to go in the positive text as a statement. No cuts. No dissolves. No text overlays. Say it plainly in the prompt because there's nowhere else to put it. For image to video specifically, describe the scene as continuing from your image, not as a brand new scene. Something like, the subject from the opening frame, same lighting, as the camera pushes in. If you write it like a fresh scene description, the model will drift away from your keyframe. EasyCache, Ctrl+B to enable it. What it does is predict how much each step would change the output, and when the predicted drift is under the reuse threshold, it skips the transformer and reuses the previous step's result. The reuse threshold at 0.2 is your speed versus quality dial. Higher means more skips. Start percent at 0.15 means it never skips the early steps, because those set your composition. End percent at 0.95 means it never skips the last ones, because those add detail. Set verbose to true, and it'll tell you in the console how many steps it actually skipped. It costs almost no memory. But it does change your output, so I leave it off by default. Turn it on while you're exploring. Turn it off for the final. So the loop I'd recommend: preset 3, 14 steps, find your framing and your motion. Keep the prompt, reroll seeds, that's basically free because the encoder's cached. Once you're happy, push steps up to 20, and optionally move up to preset 4 or 6 for the final render. Next one I want to do is the reference to audio video task. That's the one where you feed it a real audio track and it lip syncs to it. Different node, same model, and it's a really different tool. So if you want that, let me know. Thanks for watching.